Pause for thought and join in the barking with Darren Rowe on The Mindful Dog.
It's now time to catch up with my latest canine behavioural slot on Magic Talk FM with Roman Travers on the Sunday Cafe.
Speaking of dogs, when you can't get your dog to understand what it is you want them to do, chances are you need to talk with Darren Rowe from Mindfulness for Dogs. He can help you get your dog sorted, and he's here with me on the Sunday Cafe. G'day, Darren.
Morning, Roman. What a wonderful link there.
I know, that was quite clever, wasn't it? I managed to get Noel Edmonds, Bad Dogs, and you into the same thing, and Mr Blobby.
I know, that's never a sentence I thought I'd be included in. I remember Noel Edmonds when I was a kid back in the UK, with the Saturday morning swap shop, I think it was called.
Yes, it was. He's been on things like Deal or No Deal, Noel's House Party, The Late Late Breakfast Show, and of course Mr Blobby. Who doesn't love him?
Mr Blobby, gosh, that brings back memories.
So some dogs, of course, turn into Mr Blobby, don't they? Because they're not exercised enough. Is it if you're not going to run with your dog, at least get some toys, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm a great believer of playing with your dog, toy plays, basically. And I think it's something that we really, really don't do enough of. I go to a park and I see dogs just running around, walking around, and they're getting that physical exercise maybe, but they're not really getting mentally stimulated. And there's a apologies. There's a study. There's so many academic studies out there, but there was a really good one that's really worth reading. You can find it on my Facebook page, and it's all about how if we use toys to play with our dogs in the right way, then we can start to distress our dogs. And then our dogs, and there's that whole thing about if you've got a stressed dog, you've got behavioural issues. So, I mean, common sense, isn't it? Play with your dog, de-stress them, behavioural issues disappear.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, though. Play with your dog. Don't just buy a whole lot of stuff for your dog and then chuck it in the backyard and go back to watching Netflix, right?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it's that interaction, isn't it? The whole point of having a dog, in my opinion, is so that they love you, they want to play with you, they want to be part of your family. And then, like you say, we just throw toys out in the back garden and we just let them play themselves, and missing out on a whole opportunity. One of the things that I see all the time is I go to the dog parks. I quite often go to the dog parks without a dog just to watch people. It's quite sad, I know, but that's just where I am. I'm the one sat there with my cup of coffee watching other people play with a dog. And I just see people throwing the ball, and yet their dogs are tearing around and grabbing the ball. But do you know what? They're missing out on about 50% of that play that the dog's having. And I don't know if this relates to you, because you've got a border terrier, or you had a border terrier. The border terrier, when you throw the ball, they do chase, don't they? Yeah, so they'll chase the ball, but when they get there, they probably rip the ball to pieces. Yeah, that's generally what they do. Yeah, very rarely they'll bring it back. I mean, apologies to all those people who've got amazing border terriers that bring it back, but they want to rip it to pieces. So where's the fun? Is it the chase or is it the ripping apart?
Well, that's a good question, though, Darren. Is it important? Why is it we want our dogs to bring things back to us? That's all about us. What about? Is it just let them pull things to pieces, maybe?
Yeah, well, there's very few dogs that naturally bring things back. They've been bred to naturally do that. I mean, the funniest thing I find is a retriever, the golden retriever. People assume that that's a dog that's going to bring things back. In fact, it's actually quite hard to teach a golden retriever to bring things back. And all credit to all those people, those gun dog owners that do that, because they naturally want to just chase after the ball. In fact, my Irish setter is another gun dog. If you throw a ball for them, they look at it, majority, not always, but they look at it and go, yeah, what? But if you give it to them in the mouth, they run off and you chase them. They're happy as anything, because they want to be chased more so than actually want to chase. Whereas the opposite is my border collie. You throw a ball, man, they're shooting off. But how many border collies do you see again in the park that they shoot off and grab the ball or go for the ball? Once they get it, they lie down, and the owners are then wandering over to pick up the ball and throw it again.
Yeah, and then the owner's intuition is to say, oh, my dog's so naughty, it won't bring it back. Yeah. The dog doesn't know to bring it back, does it?
Exactly. The dog's just doing what it naturally does and getting the best out of it. So if we think about that ball throwing, we're throwing that ball, and so 50% of the excitement the dog's enjoying by itself, and then the other 50% they're enjoying by themselves. So I say get involved in that last bit. So I very rarely use the ball nowadays with my dogs. It's always a tuggy toy. I'll bypass the ball, and they just run around anyway. But I'll just play with tuggies, and I'll make sure I've got that association, that positive association with me and the toy, not just the toy.
Yeah, look, I know two people who've got brand new dogs in the last few weeks. Carly Flynn from Weekend Life and John Budge from the Sunday Cafe, executive producer. They've both got new dogs. You could be busy. Is this really recognised as puppy season? I think you've said before there really isn't a puppy season, is there?
New Zealand amazes me, actually, that puppy season is just all the way through the year. I can't believe we're a bit of a record. We've enlisted 26 puppies into our puppy preschool in the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I've still got people. I've booked the puppies, I've advertised one for 5 weeks' time, and I'm getting people booking into that already. So yeah, it's just going crazy. I think it might be because of lockdown. People have suddenly thought, let's get a dog.
I know, but you know what?
So
It's a
maybe.
bit like having a baby, isn't it? You just go, oh, I'm bored. Let's have a baby. You've got them for a long time, haven't you? And it's a bit like having a child.
It's exactly. I mean, I always equate a puppy or any kind of dog really to a 2-year-old child. They tend to get to that maturity, and it's about 2 years. So if you've got kids and you know how hard 2-year-olds are, that's what you've pretty much got until they're about 14.
Gee, yeah, that's a good
Quite
point.
a commitment, isn't it, really?
Yeah, look, hey, if you've got questions with your puppy, maybe you've got one or you're thinking of getting one, don't be scared about getting one. Get the right advice now by giving Darren a call on 0800 844 747. I've been told for years and years and years that your English pointers and your German pointers, they're like really immature, naughty teenagers for most of their lives. Is that true?
It is, yeah. And I was reading something on the internet. I don't know how much truth in it, but it seems to have some kind of university behind it. So, and they were saying that your dogs are a bit like teenagers in some ways. When they get to about 18 months, they can sometimes emulate that puberty teenager thing, and they do. They get really naughty. So quite often I find I train a dog as a puppy, someone's dog as a puppy, and they're fantastic. They're like top of the class, and if that person then doesn't continue the play, doesn't continue the training, and let's face it, you can put training and play together. They don't have to be separate, yeah? Then what happens about a year later, they become the naughtiest dog on the block, basically. So, yeah, they can, and they go through that terrible time, where they just don't want to do what they're told. And it's,
how important is it in that sense then? Because you and I have had differing opinions because I'm not the expert, but all through my life I've been told about you've got to be the authoritarian, you're the boss.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Donald Trump. You want the people to like you, don't you?
Well, you do, but you do have to have a line there, don't you? So with dogs, I think the most important thing is, no, you don't have to be their boss, because when we think of boss, we think of that hierarchical, like authoritarian look, but you certainly have to give boundaries and guidelines for that dog to follow, and there may be a consequence if they go over that boundary, yeah. But that consequence isn't aggression or dominance or anything like that. It'll just be maybe they just don't get that at that point, yeah. I try to make it so that they actually have a positive alternative to go to rather than go across that boundary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Because the more positive you give a dog, the more they're going to like you at the end of the day. Simple as that.
Well, it's the same at work with people that you work with. Everyone loves being patted on the back and complimented.
Exactly.
Exactly, I know. 0800 844 747. Please give me a call now and you can have a chat with Darren and ask you questions. You might even have some Rip Snorter, great toys that have lasted the distance that you might want to recommend as well. 0800 844 747. Back shortly with your call, 0800 844 747. That's the number to call for free advice with your dog, your puppy, whatever you're trying to get it to do. Often it's a tweak, a subtle little tweak, and Darren Rowe from Mindfulness for Dogs can do that tweaking with you, can't you? Sounds like a dance move, tweaking. But are you there, Darren? How about you are?
Yep, I am there. It sounded quite rude to me.
I've got a text from Ian. Ian says, is it better to buy a purebred or a mongrel?
I don't think it really makes any difference. I think the most important thing that you want to do is you want to look at what the breeder's doing and find out as much about the background of the dog as you can. So if you're buying a purebred, then it's got to be from someone that actually understands the dog and is giving that dog everything they need, especially if it's a puppy. If it's, I don't like to use the word mongrel, but if it's a crossbreed there, then I think it's really important that you understand what the crosses are, or as much as you can, and if the dog hasn't had a great life, because a lot of the crossbreeds are rescue dogs maybe, just understand that background, what kind of behaviours are likely to come out because of that background, I think. But yeah, I mean, the crossbreeds tend to be quite hardy, so they don't tend to have as many medical issues quite often.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's, for me, really, the dog picks you, so it's whatever you like.
And in terms of,
I think one's better than the other.
In terms of the toys that you buy a dog, we often like toys that appeal to us. But what about the dog?
Yeah.
What do they like? Things they can chew that don't break up? What's the best thing to buy?
So there's actually a dog is a predator, yeah. So there's actually a predatorial sequence that dogs go through, and you have like your border collies that chase, and you have your German shepherds and that kind of dog that bark lots and also chase, and then you've got the sort of staffies that grab, and then you've got your terriers that want to rip to pieces, and then you've got your gun dogs that want to chase you, right? So if you look at where your dog fits in, and we don't always fit into exactly the right category as is life, but you can kind of tell which toy would work better for your dog. So if if you've got a staffy type dog, they want to grab hold and they want to hold on to it. Getting a toy off a staffy is hard work, isn't it? Yeah? Not natural for the dog. So you always use 2 toys there, and they let go of that one to grab the next one. Yeah. But if you give them a really soft toy, they're probably not going to get a kick out of that. It's got to be quite hard. They want to grab it and really feel it in their mouth. Yeah. Whereas if you give a terrier a toy and it doesn't squeak, they're not interested. 5 minutes later, they don't care about it. Yeah. You've got to give them a squeaky one, and they want to rip to pieces.
Yeah.
So it's really important to pick the right toy for the dog, not the right toy for you.
Some dogs, of course, would regard the neighbour's cat as the best toy around because it just keeps running until it doesn't. Then it wants to rip your nose off. But how do you discourage your dog from chasing things like cats?
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, if you've got a puppy, then you've got a head start. So you can always desensitize your puppy to the kittens and cats from day one. And I'd recommend as soon as you get your puppy, even if you don't have a cat, go and find someone that does and just sit in there and let them say hello and share food and that kind of stuff. Because they will be scared. Most dogs are scared of cats. That's why they chase them. Yeah. If you've got a dog, if you've got a dog that's a little bit older, then it's actually quite a hard work because you want to stop them sort of keying into that predator-prey drive. So especially a herding dog, the last thing you want is them to chase. So all associations with a cat and a dog are always going to be on a lead while you're training, definitely.
Okay.
And the other thing is you can have your cat and put your dog maybe a couple of meters away and then just feed your dog. As long as they're not kicking off and barking and being silly, get them to a place where they're not doing that and then just feed them. And then they'll make a positive association with the cat, with food. But it does take a long time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, definitely.
Do you find people are still buying dogs they buy them for a range of reasons because they've got a small place, so they buy a small dog. But are the reasons why people don't buy big dogs valid? There's a perception they're going to eat a whole heap of food. That's not necessarily true, though, is it?
No, it's not. And I, in my opinion, this is just, I mean, I've got big dogs, so I'm a bit biased, but I actually find a bigger dog is easier to look after than a smaller dog. I think, and the main reason for that is that when we get a smaller dog, we think we don't have to do anything with the dog because it's just a little tiny thing, isn't it, that sits there. But it's still the same as a big dog. You still need to do the same training. You still need to do all the same things that you would with a bigger dog. And when we don't, we get really naughty little dogs. And there's a lot of naughty little dogs out there.
I've just found one for you, Darren. It's a text that's coming from Aaron. Our older dog, it's a Chihuahua that used to pee on the puppy pads, but recently started peeing beside them. How do I get the little Chihuahua to pee back on the right place?
Yeah, so I've got a bit of an issue with some of the puppy pads because if you think about what's happening, you're teaching your dog to pee inside. Right. Full stop. It might be, that's an interesting one, it might just be probably, actually think about that one, it's probably the feeling that they have on their feet. So when dogs pee, they kind of get stimulated or get triggered to pee by the feeling in their paws. So if they go on grass, it's a different feeling to concrete, to puppy pads. And it may well be that there's something going on there that it just doesn't like that puppy pad feeling anymore. Okay. But I would be very strongly thinking about catching that puppy. I mean, our puppies are asleep at the moment, but the second they wake up, they're going outside, and we'll take them out, and they won't come back in until they've had a pee.
Yeah. No, look, and
we're training them to do that. And they went through for the first time last night, all through the night, without waking us up to go to the toilet. So I've had a really good sleep.
There'll be situations where people live in apartments where they don't have grass anywhere near them, so all that stuff becomes, it's a little bit unnatural, but it's what people do. Here's another text. Hi, Roman. What's the best way to stop a 1-year-old Huntaway cross lab pup from eating everything, especially inedible things like wood from the garden? She's not so bothered about food. It's more eating toys. And this one, it goes on to say she's just come in from the vet and eaten a whole almond off a tree. Now, an almond's tiny, of course.
Not good.
Are they?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Well, it can be. I think they've probably got a case on them. I suppose the other thing is like they're eating stones and things like that. Labradors are terrible, aren't they, for that sort of thing, or lab crosses, definitely. It's really a management thing. Our puppies have just started to, we put them out on the driveway and they've started to pick up stones. So that's not happening anymore. They're not going out on the driveway because I don't want to give them that opportunity. I suppose the more a dog does something, the more it becomes fun and that behaviour then becomes something they want to do. So I would think about restricting where they go on concrete so they don't have access to any of those sort of things. It's a hard one though, isn't it? Because if the dog's just left out there by itself to do things, it's going to find things. So it really is a management thing. Our dogs are not just left alone. If they are, they're in the kennel. So
I knew a Labrador years ago that, no lie, this dog, a Labrador, was a golden Labrador, ate a 1 kilo of cheese because it was on the bench.
Wow.
It wasn't hungry. It just ate it. And
Yeah,
would that
right.
make a dog pretty sick?
Oh, I would have thought so. Yeah, they're quite dairy intolerant, most dogs, aren't they? I think, as far as I'm aware. The other thing is that a friend of mine had a dog who would kept eating stones, and they've had 5 operations. And if anyone's had a dog in a vet to get an operation, it's a $30,000 every time. So their dog has cost them a fortune.
Yeah, horrible.
It's well worth the management.
Yes, it is indeed. And I tell you what, and this isn't just me trying to flog your business, because I think you do a wonderful job, and it's a service that people...
Darren, can you do that?
No, well, because the thing is, Darren, that often we get a dog, and people like me, and I go, oh, yep, I've had dogs for years, I know what I'm doing. I've got no idea. I think I know, but to get it right from the start is important, isn't it?
That first 20 weeks if it's a puppy dictates everything you're going to get from that point onwards, really. So, yeah, it's so important. And I kind of tell people, I would rather people phone me up, and occasionally, not very often, but I'd rather people enlist me as a dog trainer before they even got their dog, because if they can get everything set up right in the first place, then they don't even introduce those bad behaviours from the start. And again, people do the puppy preschools and they think, oh, that's it, got it all sussed now. But if you were to just train your dog, doesn't matter who with, as long as they're a good trainer and they're that force-free, positive trainer, if you were to train your dog for the first year, constantly, every week, man, you'd have an amazing dog. You really would.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need to do anything after that unless something sort of happens to the dog in the meantime. No?
There is still time for you to get your question in, and here's how you do it. You grab your phone and call 0800 844 747. Darren Rowe here from Mindfulness for Dogs. Darren, I was going for a walk recently, one of my big long walks. I came past a gateway and some massive dog, I think it was a Mastiff and an Alsatian, they both knew I was coming and they waited till I was right at the gate and they lit up. I just about filled my pants. Here's a text that says, our neighbours have dogs and they bark all the time when we walk past and when they hear noises. What's a nice way to talk to our neighbours about this? Well, this is more like, PR control stuff, isn't it?
That's a hard one, isn't it? Because, your neighbours never, or your neighbours never think that the dogs are barking because they're never there. So the best way to do it, I always find, is proof. So just record it. That's the best way on your phone, and then just say, look, are you aware that your dogs are doing this? But what I would say is don't just go and call the council straight away. Have a chat with them, build that relationship with your neighbours, because a lot of times it's just about placing your dog in a different position. And like I say, half the time the neighbours aren't even aware that the dogs are doing that. If you feel you can't speak to the neighbours, then obviously you go through the correct routes and stuff. But it does get really messy really quickly when you involve the council straight away. There's a lot of other things that can be done before that. But one real quick way, when we were back in the UK and we were walking around, I used to take the 7 dogs around the streets, and no dog would be barking, or very few dogs would be barking at my dogs. And the reason being is what I would do is when I got to a place where the dogs would bark, I'd just stand still. Because if you think about why dogs bark at us, they want to get rid of us. Yeah. So they come charging out and they're barking. So we just stand there, and as long as we're not too scared and it's all safe, if we just stand there and wait until the dog stops barking and then walks away, then they haven't got what they want. So that strategy doesn't work, so they won't do it next time, or they won't do it after a few times. 2 things happen. They either choose to do that, or the owner gets so upset with the dog barking they come out and actually bring their dog in. Either way, it's a win-win, isn't it?
Oh, look, I'm not one who's nervous about dogs, but these two, the adrenaline just coursed through my veins. It was incredible. They were very loud and quite... So my concern with that sort of thing is it's all very well for dogs to be within their boundary and they can do what they want, but if it's a small child going past, or these dogs manage to get close enough to have a bite, this is a menacing problem, isn't it?
It is, and that definition of aggression, isn't it? A dog's allowed to bark in its own property for, I think it's about 5 minutes before it becomes a nuisance. But when they're actually charging at the gate, some people's gates aren't very strong. That becomes that becomes an aggression case, isn't it? So you're within your rights to actually report that issue if it's really bad. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. One breed I don't see much of anymore, but I love their personalities, is the Doberman. Here's a text from Macca. My red Amroth Doberman loves to pop tennis balls. It won't tear them to pieces, hence I have half a dozen of them in my ute. Apart from that, he's a brilliant companion. That's quite a delicate operation, just to pop the ball but not rip it to pieces.
It is. Yeah, so that goes back to what we were saying earlier about the chomping. So the Dobie's like a grabby, bitey dog, isn't it, really? So their fun would be that chewing. If they're excessively doing that, it could be a stress relief, because remember when dogs chew, they release all those happy drugs. I think Nats was talking about the release of the hormones in the flight and fight. It's the same thing for dogs. So, when they chew, they release all those lovely hormones and it makes them feel happy. But remember, right, if your dog's chewing and chewing and chewing and they're releasing those happy drugs, then there's always a downer right afterwards. So that's where the behavioural issues come in.
So there's still time to squeeze in a call, 0800 844 747. How much playtime is too much playtime? Because I know that dogs need a lot of sleep, don't they?
They do, yeah, and that's one of the things I always recommend to people, that if a dog doesn't get to sleep, there's no processing time of the day, so they wake up really freaked out and really sort of high already. So you're starting at like 50% before you even get there. What I would say is, and this is my recommendation, again, I've just written a blog about it, strange enough, when you take your dog out for that hour walk or 5-hour walk nowadays, maybe take the last 15 minutes and just do some toy play. And then if you take your dog out 2 or 3 times a day, then you've got that toy play, and that's like tuggy toy. So find an appropriate toy that your dog's going to enjoy and then play tuggy with them. You can find the rules of tuggy. It's not, a lot of people say you don't play tuggy because it builds that aggression. It doesn't. Actually, it vents that aggression, because that aggression is going to come out through the natural predator-prey drive. So better to train it onto something more appropriate than to something that you don't want it to do it on, like someone's arm or something like that,
Well, 2 people who are glued, apart from everybody else who's glued to this, listening to you about how to raise a puppy, Carly Flynn and John Budge, glued to every word because they've both got new puppies. But should you associate food with play? What I'm saying is, should you be stuffing those Kong-type toys with peanut butter and things that, I just think that sounds disgusting.
I'm not so keen on the peanut butter thing myself, but just because of allergies and things like that. I don't know if dogs do have allergies of peanuts, but they're separate things. So those Kongs and things are about the boredom releasing and the boredom sort of chewing, that sort of thing. The toy play that I'm talking about that's more de-stressing in a predator-prey drive is the tuggies and things like that. So yeah, both. There's a place for both of those. I have lots of, my puppies have got 4 or 5 chew toys in there that they're chewing on at the moment, and that's a positive thing. But when they come out, they play tuggy with me. So that's a bonding thing.
And what about in a family situation, that whole thing about being able to take a toy, how dogs are very possessive with their toys. Yeah. Should everybody in the family be able to go and take that toy off the dog?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? I always say that kids under 5 shouldn't try taking things away from a dog at all. Why would you put your kid in that position? Most dogs will do it, but if they don't, your kid's been bitten and your dog's been put down, so it's not worth even doing that. But if they're a resource guarder, so they have a rescue dog or a mixed breed and had a bad life, then they're probably going to guard those toys with their life. So the last thing you want to do is take that toy away from them, because they're going to then guard it even more next time. So yes, you do need to be able to teach a dog to release things, but if you've got a resource guarder, you might end up making the situation worse if you force it.
Okay. And should you do the whole... You know how real tough guys have big tough dogs and they get them to hang off toys while suspended in midair. Should you do that, or should you make a dog sit and release?
So it's normally those the big bully type dogs that you see them swinging around. Look, some of those dogs love that, don't they? I'm not a medical person. Maybe Charlie next week can answer that question. But I can't see how that would do me any good if I was holding on with my teeth and swinging around. There are some circus people that do that, and they must be pretty strong. But I can't see, especially when they let go of them, the dogs go flying and then land on their hips and break their legs.
No, it's
can't be great for them, can it?
No, you're right. It is definitely Cirque du Soleil material, isn't it? Yeah, you're right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Darren, I love how enthusiastic you are, and you are a member of the Association of Pet Dog Trainers of New Zealand. You've got blogs, you've got stuff for people to go online and check you out. How do they find you?
So you can find me on Facebook. You can just search for Mindfulness for Dogs. And like I say, I've just put a blog all about this, so if you didn't catch this, you can read the blog. You can find me on my website. It's mindfulnessfordogs.com.
Lovely. Hey,
and
Darren.
please contact me. Just give me a ring and I'm happy to have a chat.
Are you? What's your phone number?
Yeah, it's 0274. I do it slowly. 0274.
Yep.
585872.
Well, that wasn't very helpful. I didn't have a pen. Start again.
Can you check? I'll say it again. 0274 585872.
Brilliant. Darren Rowe from Mindfulness for Dogs. They're helping you with your new puppy or your old dog. You can teach an old dog new tricks.
You've been listening to Darren Rowe on The Mindful Dog, giving our canine friends a voice throughout the world. To find out more about what we do, visit our website at www.mindfulnessfordogs.com.